Welcome back to Fast Gadgets. Today I'd like to talk about some of the awesome comments that I got on my videos and want to thank you, the viewers. 302 subscribers as of today. I feel very fortunate to have you subscribing and watching the videos, and I also want to take this second here and thank you very much for some of the comments that you put on the videos. I've actually gotten a lot of help from your comments on the videos, suggestions, different ideas when I'm working through some of the videos. I really couldn't do it without you, and there wouldn't be any point, honestly. Some of the information and feedback you provide me is awesome. So I thought I'd talk about a couple of those comments, starting with what Linux users can expect from the Windows 10 anniversary. Some interesting comments. Couple people say, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't mind that. That's okay. Again, I just have an opinion. I'm not telling anybody that I know better and you should do what I say you should do, because we all have our own opinions and we all have to do our own research and make our own informed decisions. I will say, however, this person was saying that I did not know better, that Cortana is not baked in. The source that I offered to this person, actually, I'll click here, was PC World, and they cited Microsoft in the source, and had another guy here, Zanman26, thank you, sir, gave us the actual link. So if you want to read about it, you can find out that unfortunately you're kind of stuck with Cortana. You can disable or hide some of the functionality, but it's still there in the background, kind of creepy. I don't know what it's doing. Is it listening? I really hope not. Daniel Gnomes says driver signing's a big issue with Windows 10. If you're installing it on a production machine that uses specific drivers for unique hardware, scientific equipment, he makes a great point there. If that driver isn't signed, it's not going to work, so something to consider. Now, I have heard there's some older drivers that if they are already installed after upgrade, they will continue to work. I don't know what will happen if you install those drivers after the fact, so I'm a little concerned. I'm not too worried about NVIDIA drivers. Rudy Bleeker says even with the example of the NVIDIA drivers mentioned, it can still be a problem. NVIDIA does not sign all of the drivers, especially if they do a specific fix. So it might be a problem. What else did we have? This was a really good comment. Mira Marensis, hopefully I got that right, says at this moment Windows 10 is the best computing solution for people that use 360-degree touchscreens, which is what I'm recording on right now, my Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro. Says the ability to rotate display until the user finds the perfect position is unmatched by any other OS out there. In the case of my system, the keyboard turns off automatically when you start folding it, which is great. I have to agree with this person. They make a really good point. You really can't beat that feature. Now, GNOME does have some of the features that you need to use the touchscreen, but if I flip my computer into a tablet mode, so to speak, the keyboard doesn't turn off. I was pretty sure it did in Fedora 23, so I got to see what's up with that. This person, DJ the Replay, says, you know, if privacy is your big issue, this is a great point, and I'll talk about that in another video that I'm going to release. If you have a wired or wireless connection to the internet and you're in the cloud, you're using services, you're better off cutting off your Wi-Fi or disconnecting and never going on the internet. I mean, that's the facts. If you go on the internet, Windows 10 is only one of your concerns for privacy, right? And a deceiving eye, early, saw the video early, I guess. And here's a link to, whoops, where you can still disable Cortana. I haven't tried it, but why not? It's worth a try. Is it time for a new system? Just released this video. I'm really enjoying the comments that you're making. David Grishko says installing Linux on a Mac is super easy. You really got me thinking. I think I was kind of narrowing down my thoughts on hardware. I really like the Mac design, but I would like to be able to switch operating systems if I wanted to. I'm a little bit hoping I could do Boot Camp and do Linux and have OS 10, which is now Mac OS, which would be really, really nice. I would like that. So I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I should reevaluate. Let's see. Hatsona, I would look into the Dell XPS line. And again, great idea. I actually went and checked out some of the Dell XPS systems. They are awesome. As a matter of fact, I will have a window shopping video coming out, so watch for that. I'm going to take a trip to Best Buy, and in that video, there is this fantabulous Dell laptop, $2,200. I wanted it so bad. You have no idea how beautiful this laptop was. So I'll talk about that in that video. I do love the Razer Blade. The reason I like it is because it has a very similar chassis to the Macs, and it just looks like a rock solid build. When I started seeing the prices, I kind of got a little skittish. I don't really want to spend $2,000. If you know anything about me, you know I'm kind of a value shopper. That doesn't mean that I'm going to buy a system that's cheap, but I may opt to buy a used system instead. Okay, so it just depends. If I can find a used system for a good price, I'm going to do it. Another person recommended Asus or Asus, depending on how you like to say it. I've had Asus laptops in the past, and I really did like them. So, good ideas. My Fedora 22 bug that's been plaguing me with the blinking screen may have finally come to an end for now. My discovery is it appears that the kernel that I was using is the culprit with this specific laptop. Okay, so on other laptops, in actuality, my Lenovo Yoga 11 is working perfectly fine on the new kernel, but it has a different graphics chipset, so that could be the reason. What I did was back off the kernel. The current version I was using was a 4.65 kernel in Linux. I backed off to a 4.55. Looks like the problem might be solved. The downside is I've got an older kernel, and eventually you can see where it'll become a problem. Some software will say we can't run without the latest kernel or 4.6 or higher or whatever. Then I get into a bit of a snafu, but hopefully by then they'll have the newest kernel and I won't have to worry about it. Alright, this video, why you don't need a Galaxy Note 7. I talked a lot about my Galaxy Note 4 and how the Note 4 is really a very good phone, and I can't really see the logic in upgrading the phone when it has an outstanding display, more than enough processing power, and ample storage, and you can get added storage. Janice Azar says, love my Note 4. Might upgrade to the 7 if it had a dual curved screen. I'm actually the opposite. I do not want the dual curved screens because of what David Reyes said. If I'm pronouncing your name right, David, I'm sorry if I'm not. Curved screens are absolutely gorgeous to look at. I had the GS7 curved and actually returned it and got a Note 5 because when you hold a curved screen, you unintentionally open apps when you're holding the screen. I'm the king of fat fingering, so I'm going to have that problem. I can barely type on the keyboard on my Note 5 even though it's large enough. Normal people don't have a problem. I seem to have a problem. I'm happy with the Note 4. And another person commented, I actually watched this video on my Note 4, still love mine, Metal Michael 13. It's not like we have to be so consumerist that we're driven to near madness to having to have the latest and the greatest. There are those who like to buy the latest and greatest, and I don't disparage them. They're the cutting edge of technology, and they learn about technology and kind of fuel desires about learning what they can about technology. And I certainly love buying new tech. But I have to be a little bit more frugal with a family and a meager income from teaching college courses. So, yeah, I'm a little bit more careful with my money, but I don't completely live the life of a poor man, right? I still get to get some good stuff. What else did we have? I don't know if we've gotten any comments on this one yet. If you watched my Arch Linux installation, you probably got a good chuckle. A couple of you gave me some great comments. Zanman said, it's great you're exploring the Arch. Whoops, we don't need the video to play. It's great that you're exploring the Arch Wiki. However, I'm digging too deep. He says you could set the network up in less than 5 minutes, and he gave me a specific point to go to. And I missed one command that would have set up DHCPD very easily for me, and it was all done. And I skipped it. Well, that's me. Always in a big hurry, trying to look at broad strokes and just get the installation done, and then working and tweaking on the little issues, when if I just read a little bit slower, I actually would have got through it much better. Zanman helped me with some great comments, and the link actually was really helpful. I went back and made a note, so if I do my Arch install again, say right on the hardware, I'll have a better idea of what I'm doing. But I did learn a lot, so I really enjoyed that. Mac versus Lenovo with Fedora 24. This was really a big surprise for me. So basically what I did in this video was I used Handbrake on an i7 MacBook Air and on my Lenovo Yoga 2 i7, which was about the same production. So this Lenovo Yoga 2 is 2014. The MacBook Air is also a 2014 edition. And I was astonished when I used Handbrake to convert the same exact video. I can't remember the exact times, but Handbrake on the Mac finished twice as fast as it did on the Lenovo, which I was a little disappointed, you know? I'm kind of rooting for Linux. I wanted Fedora and Linux to just kick butt. So there's definitely going to be some more Fedora versus Mac challenges, and I'm going to find different software and do some different rendering and see what happens. I'm sure Linux is going to beat out OS X sometime in some way. Not sure how yet, but I'm going to play around, try couple different things, and I'm really trying to do apples to apples. That's why I liked Handbrake, because I could run it on both of them. So I'm looking for something I can run on both systems, and we'll see what we can find out. Daniel Olson said, I thought the Yoga would kill the MacBook Air, but I was bummed. And they're very close system speaking. Both have 8 gigabytes of RAM. Both are i7s. Both have a that one has a 128 gigabyte SSD. The MacBook does, the MacBook Air. This one has, the Lenovo Yoga 2 has a 256 SSD. Really can't see how it could make much of a difference. Eat My Death said, how weird. Great question from C. Kyberliz about the Yoga 2. My touch doesn't open context menus in the file browser, in panels, and everywhere else. Do you have the same issue in Fedora 24 GNOME 3? I really don't. It seems like everything seems to work with touch. The only problem I had was a context menu in Nautilus when I clicked on a file, and that was it. Everything else seemed to be working. So it's really dependent on what hardware you have. That's the downside with Linux. It can be a little bit of hit or miss, which is really unfortunate. Did a OS X and GNOME 3 comparison. Surprise, surprise, they're nearly identical. GNOME decided to make a paradigm shift with 3, and it was astounding how many people hated it. I initially hated it, and the funny thing is I hadn't touched a Mac in my entire life at that point. So I really didn't know anything about it. Well, Eat My Dust said, great vid. GNOME's almost a copy of Mac OS. Uses Fedora 24 as their daily driver on his laptop or her laptop, and it works great. And I have to agree, I really like Fedora 24 on my laptop. I actually get better performance. I have noticed that. Windows 10 seemed to be throttling the CPU quite a lot on my Lenovo Yoga 2. Ricardo Ramos says, I've used OpenSUSE, Mandriva, Magia. Fedora became his favorite distro and he doesn't want to switch anymore. I've kind of gotten to that point, and I've mentioned English Bob before in my videos. Now, he is just the consummate distro tester. He uses Arch as his primary distro, but he tests so many different distros. In my case, I specialize on Fedora 24, Red Hat, and CentOS. Those are my areas of expertise and distros that I use the majority of the time. I'm not saying I wouldn't test another distro. I certainly would. I've used Ubuntu from time to time. It really just depends, but 98% of the time I am going to be on a Fedora distribution, CentOS, or Red Hat. And Red Hat I really reserve for servers. And you have to be willing to pay for the server support, so it really depends what you want. Christopher Lee Murray, in my opinion, the GNOME team may use particular design elements from Mac. However, the interface is a much better implementation. Just his preference. GNOME has been my favorite desktop environment for years now. I'm biased here, so this is where I'm not too objective. I have to agree. I think GNOME did a better implementation as well. It might be a little bit harder to do tweaking, but you know what? That's okay. In Mac OS X, I think you're not as able to tweak. There is some serious hard limits. I still have to explore the whole idea in Mac OS X of loading my own Kext, K-E-X-T. It's so hard to say. So I think I'm going to install Homebrew in the future and work on using my own plugins and apps that are not a part of the Apple Store. The whole thing that I don't like about doing that is you buy OS X for its stability and what it can do. You buy Windows 10 for its stability and what it can do. I've heard so many people say, I love the open source package XYZ that you talked about. Can I get it on Windows? And the answer to that usually is no. Well, if we love Linux so much and we love how the open source package implementations work, it's not likely that the open source producers are necessarily going to create it for Windows or OS X. So I always think, if I wanted open source, I probably should go to the source, right? Which is Linux, GNU packages, GNU programs, and there's the basis for the open source packages I want to use. If they're going to be ported, it's less likely. Now, if a software developer decides, hey, I'm going to make open source versions for Windows, I'm going to make one for OS X like Handbrake, I'm going to make one for Linux BSD, that's awesome. More power to them. I'm just saying that most open source developers limit their open source development to Linux and FreeBSD based distributions. Anyway, I really appreciate your comments and I hope you keep them coming. There's many more comments I have not gone over that have been extremely helpful for me. Great suggestions, great ideas, and the more I hear, the more I can tailor the channel and make it work better for you at the same time. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time on Fast Gadgets.